So let's really quickly look at the setup for this Color Me page right here, and just to remind you one more time, if you didn't watch the demo the first time, how this works. You're basically just pressing down. So as the reader is pressing down on the big white background back here, this little wand is following along, and of course you can change the colors. You can even add in a random texture, and that adds one slight little change to how we're going to do this, the fact that it's randomizing a texture on one of these, and well, that's one of the big things I'll explain today. So we've got just an image. This isn't named, okay? It's and that's actually why you're getting this little message down here. If you are getting that, it doesn't have a custom class to it. To add interactivity through the property list, anytime you add in a color sprite or whatever it is, what you're going to want to do is set this to element, and then go ahead and give it some sort of name that you can find it with red square, something that's kind of obvious, right? So I've done that for all of the elements that I've got on stage here, except for this one. It just didn't need it. And I've got wand, okay, so that's what's actually following it around the user's touch. Draw element, that's an important one because that is actually going to get cloned every time we are pressing down on the big white canvas back here, which actually is a color sprite that just doesn't have a texture to it. It's got a white color to it, and I've named it canvas, and again I've called it element over here. So that's something that we're going to interact with. And then we've got our kind of color picker slash texture picker over here. These are named really simply red, orange, yellow, and well, you'd think star, but I put that in there as choose star. I'll have to remember that. And yet one more time again, they're all called elements. So that's all that we're working with right here. And if you want to set up many more colors, it's certainly easy. So we're going to go over here to the property list, and of course, hopefully you notice that our scene is called Color Me, and that matches the pages entry inside of here. If I wanted to have an alternate scene just for the iPhone, I could do that. I would just name it Color Me and then capital P phone and .sks, and then I could size it up so that the dimensions match that of an iPhone. What you're going to do is the iPhone 6 Plus dimensions, which if memory serves me well, 736 by 414 are the dimensions for that. And what the kit does is it scales it down for the various other devices. So, but you don't have to do that. That's the nice thing about it. I think in a lot of cases you can get away with just one scene and one property list, and you can also set up different cameras for each device as well. So I'm going to unfold the Color Me page now, and I've got elements, events, settings, generators, and stick node to node. Those are my main dictionaries in here. Each of these you can think of as basically just a group, and within that group you've got other groups. All right, so I've got inside of my elements, draw element, draw an item, we'll talk about that in a sec, orange, red, yellow, choose star, and canvas. So all of those you saw before except for this draw an item, which again we'll talk about later. And inside each one of those we're defining different properties for the elements. So things that we can't set up through the scene, some stuff it's programmably different, things like that. This is where the property list comes in. We're going to extend the functionality of what you could do by default. But let's start. So let's start over here with our canvas, okay? Because that's kind of the thing that we begin with. You touch down on that, and it's got a touch event dictionary, and this defines what's going to happen when we touch down. And we've got another one over here for touch up event. So when the user releases their fingers, they stop touching the screen, that's going to fire, and when they touch down, this will fire. So the first thing that happens is move node to touch, and we are specifying that is going to be wand. Okay, now how do you know what to put in here? Well, we've got an entire iBook, kind of glossary of terms. It's a documentation guide, but you can also go over here and just look at under examples, and the little note here is you can copy and paste from these, and that's true. So you can always go and just pull out some different things. And nice thing about this is they're all set up in such a way that it kind of gives you a little guide as to, well, this is going to be the sound file minus the name or whatever. So just keep that in mind. You can see all the different events that I put in there for you to use. And move node to touch, that's going to move our wand to the actual touch location. And then we've got start following touch, so that's going to mean that the wand is going to start following the user's touch. their movements on the screen, and then start generator, that is going to start generating copies of our draw element node. And then over here on touch up event, when we release, we're going to stop that same generator with the same name, stop all following touch. So that'll just release anybody that was following the touch. Now, a cool thing about I think this is true for everything. I can't think of an example where this is not the case. If it has string over here, you can change it to an array and put in multiple options. Okay, so now I'd want to put back in my wand, right? But if there was something else that I wanted to put in here, let's say wand 2, okay, I could make that follow or move to the touch location as well. And again, if it's a string, you can probably change it to an array and put in multiple items. And I'm going to change that back because I don't want to confuse you too much with unnecessary stuff. All right, so that basically takes care of the canvas. Now let's go and look at the generator that is starting up. Now it matches the name of this element, draw element, but also generators has the same matching name over here. Okay, so just remember, if you're going to generate something, when you put in a dictionary under the generators, you're going to want to make sure that it's named the same thing as an element that is on the stage. Now keep in mind, it could be a hidden element, and code-wise, what happens then is it just unhides the whatever is getting cloned as soon as that happens. Now the generators, this is odd. I didn't even really intend for them to be used as part of the drawing application inside of here, but then when I went to go and program, I was like, wait, I think I've already done all of this, and sure enough, they worked out great. But they weren't initially intended for that. So you've got all these properties in here where you can vary the location of the element that is getting cloned. You can set the amount that you're going to do total. You can set the frequency, so how quickly they end up getting cloned. And this is a really quick frequency because I want it to, I want you to be able to make it seem like you're drawing, right? But if I'd set this to something like 1 second, then it's only going to make a new clone of draw element every second that you're pressing down the screen, which of course would not really make it seem like a drawing application. But keep in mind, you can clone anything. You can clone physics objects, whatever you want. So you could just make a cool starscape, let people create new stars every second or so, and they drop down, they float with gravity, whatever it is. And then you've got an option down here that says rename to, and you can rename the item that you've cloned. And this, we'll go back to this segment. The delay over here is just the initial delay if you wanted to put one in from the start, from calling start generator. In this case, obviously, we don't want that. And the reason we have this rename to property is you can. So we're gonna clone draw element, but then if you rename it, what the code does is it basically goes back and it finds another element inside of here. In this case, it's going to be drawn item, and kind of supersedes any of the properties that this had initially. Okay, so if my draw element was at a z depth of 100 when it got cloned, I don't need to see that again. Then we can change it to -100 after we have cloned it. So it's still going to have all of those initial properties that you started with, but then you can add on some extra ones. And then let's see. Let me explain this real fast. If you want to vary the location of where the clone is going to appear, what you'd want to do is set an initial offset value. Let's say -250 and a -250 for the Y. So imagine my cloned item was getting created right here. Well, -250 is going to put it down this way on the Y-axis, and -250 on the X-axis, so back here. But the very X and the very Y, what you'd probably want to do is double what you put over the negative value in there with the positive value, and then that way, so again, pretend that we're starting over here, -250, -250, and then we have random values based on these two. So then it's going to come up with a random value of potentially 0 to 499. So that could then displace it from anywhere from like about here to here and about over to here to here. So you've got, then you'd have basically a range of around here. And you know what the heck, you want to try, let's try it real fast with those properties in there. Okay, so I'm gonna click down, and so you see exactly what that does. Whoa! So let's rewind that a little bit, and I guess I skipped over the enabled one. We would not want to initially enable this. You could, so as soon as the scene loads up, it would start generating clones. But because we're not moving it around or anything like that, they'd all just get placed in the same spot as draw element. And that's what the start generator does. It basically enables this to get going, and stop generator, of course, would switch that back to no again. So that's how you would you end up creating those clones, and then from there we just got to figure out how we're going to change their texture each time, right? So let's look at the orange. That's the orange square that's on there. It just has a touch event of set values, and it has a touch event of set texture. Now what's happening here is that the draw element is getting set to orange circle, and that is that little bit of it that's following around the top left of the wand. So right here, see that little guy? So when I change it to red, yellow, and every time I create that clone, I'm renaming it to drawn item, and then also putting that Z depth far lower than what draw element is actually at. So it's really our drawn item that ends up getting a new texture. Okay, so you might think, well, how come we're not putting the texture inside of there? Well, I still have inside of here set random texture from pool preference, and now that I think about it, I could probably take that off of there. Thing is it's cloning this, doing that, and then it's renaming this and putting those properties in. So if we wanted, let's just see if it still works with set random texture from preference pool. We'll go a little off script here and see if this still works out. Okay, so that does work out just fine. Maybe I'll leave it in there if that makes a little bit more sense for you guys. So set random texture from preference pool. What this does is, instead of just doing something like set texture, right, or set texture from preference, here, maybe this is a better way to look at it first. Set texture from preference would use the preference that you set up over here. So color pref, all right, that's what we set the value as, and color pref then equals orange circle. And what that would do is go inside of our assets catalog, it would find orange circle and use that. So each one of these touch events for red, yellow, whatever it is, they're just changing the color preference to red circle, yellow circle, choose star. That's going to be stars. Now what I'm doing is, as you saw a second ago, I'm actually using set random texture from preference pool. And this is a little bit different because what I've done is I've created a pool, and you've got a dictionary over here called pools, and you can put in different arrays of things that kind of make sense to pool together. So one of them would be random hi messages, hola, hi, hello, things like that. But it can also be texture preferences. So if you unfold these now, you can see that I'm using the pool that has actually just the same name, yellow circle, red circle, orange circle, as my texture assets, but inside of here I've got stars, which then has multiple items for star 1, star 2, star 3. So when I do a random sampling of yellow circle, there's only one item inside of here, which is the name of the texture atlas, or the texture in the asset catalog. Now I could have more than one. I could have red circle 2, whatever it is, and you could even have, if you wanted to have like many of the same ones, but then like kind of randomly have or less randomly have a different one, you could do that. So obviously if you had 4 items in here called red circle and then a 5th one called red circle 2, that one's not going to show as much. Just something to think about. So let's set that back. So then you can see here that we've obviously got 5 different stars, and then that goes and finds star 1, star 2, star 3, star 4 over there. And let's head back up the property list again. Let's fold this guy back up, and then so that's our set values, and then this just again sets the draw element to being that orange circle, and I believe that takes care of all the properties that make this happen. I think we've talked about everybody, haven't we? Oh, under events, this is actually kind of important. We've got set values if nil, and what this does is it takes our color pref value and it sets it to red circle initially. And that is important because you wouldn't want to have that equal nothing initially, because you're going to want to be able to draw right away and avoid any sort of crashes or things like that. But set values if nil, what this does is if color preference doesn't already have an existing value, it's going to assign it that. Otherwise, it's just going to ignore it, and your color pref will stay whatever it was previously, and that actually spans the lifetime of the app. Okay, so when we set values, it gets saved as an NS user default, so it's there until someone were to actually delete the app. And this is not really just used for textures, although that's a great use of it. You could use it for storing the username of whoever is playing with the app, and we've got functionality tied in with the keyboard to make that super easy to do. And so anyway. There is one last thing we forgot to talk about: our stick node to node dictionary. And with these, you can put in any dictionary name or sub-dictionary inside of here that you want. The name really does not matter. It's the contents inside of here that actually do something. So use stick node, all right, and then you can make this an array, or you could just put in here, this is a string value, just put in here draw element to node, and then that's going to be the wand. And that draw element then is going to always stick to the wand. And you can actually copy this, and you could put it in here as an event, so you could do something like that, or use it as one of your touch events. But we're going to have this running the entire time, so anytime this is open, that little draw element node or element is always stuck to the wand right there. But there are some interesting other values that you can add inside of here. But since they don't really apply, I'll let you guys poke around in the documentation for that. Although I will point out, if you're curious, the anchor point for the wand is actually up here in the top left. So if you look at anchor point, usually this would be set at 0.5 and 0.5. And if I did that, you'll notice, and I rerun this, you'll notice that I end up drawing from the middle of that wand. So obviously that doesn't look as good. 0 on the x-axis puts that little dot right over there, and then of course, as you saw before, 1 puts it right up there in the top left. And I'll let you guys figure out where you would put that if you wanted it to be in any of these other quarters. It's not too hard to figure out. Okay, so that does it for this step-by-step guide.